Hey everyone, Ekman here with another video, and today we've got an overview of two new leaders from OP10. We've got the Law and Kid leaders, which are yellow and green and yellow respectively, which I know a lot of people are looking forward to trying these out. They're pretty unique for what they do. I know these are also fan favorite characters, and I'm excited to kind of go over my thoughts of these as well. So this video, we're going to have a guide for some of the cards and how the archetype works. We're going to have some example deck lists as well as example games for each one of these at the end as well. So if you guys are new to the channel, please make sure to hit that like and subscribe if you haven't already. We make a lot of One Piece content here, and we're definitely going to continue as we get to the release of OP10 in a couple weeks as well. So jumping on into it though, we do have these Law and Kid leaders, and these are kind of reminiscent of like the set one respective leaders for Law and Kid that we got. We had the red and green Law, which is now reflected with this yellow and green Law, and we also have this mono yellow Kid, which is kind of reflective of the yellow or the green Kid. And the most reason for this is because they're both kind of the same idea. The Law specifically kind of using the anime lore for Law for how his effects work and everything, but it has this Dawn ×1 activate main. Once per turn, if the total cost of your characters is 5 or more, you can return one character to your hand, reveal the top card of your life. If that card is a supernova type character with a cost of 5 or less, you can play it for free. So you do kind of like lose a life to do so, but being able to play a 5 cost for free with this activate main effect is really, really strong and lets you kind of fill up the board, especially since green supernovas have a lot of great 5 costs you can play off this, and Law can definitely take advantage of it. So it's really cool, and again, really reminiscent of kind of like the red-green Law where you're able to bounce stuff back to hand to play 5 cost and get those effects. This has been really cool. It's a little bit tough to sequence correctly, and again, you do have to take cards directly from your life, so you do have to go to a pretty low life total pretty quickly, but again, it's a very high skill cap, I think, for how you play this deck, and I've been having a lot of fun with it too. So, and we've got the Eustass Captain Kid. End of your turn, you may turn the top card of your life face up, set up to one of your 3 to 8 cost characters with supernova type active. Then that character gains blocker until the end of your turn. So a little bit less aggressive than the green Kid leader that we've had previously, but you will find out that there's a lot of ways for this to be very burn damage heavy, and you're able to but also be block heavy and get that kind of duality with it. It's really cool. This is a really unique leader, and I really like the archetype that it has built around it too, so I'm excited to kind of go over that more. The leader itself, you can't kind of glean a lot from it by just reading it, but when you see more cards that exist in the archetype, since yellow supernovas really didn't exist before this, you get to find a lot of cool things with this too. So I do also want to mention real quick before we jump into anything else, there is a promo that is missing for this kind of archetype. It's a yellow Law supernova. It's a 4-drop 5k 2k counter, and then it has an effect that you get to play it from your life based on kind of life totals. So this is a card that we don't know if when we're getting here in the English version of the card game, at least as of recording this video. I don't think it's going to be at release at the very least for us, and I think that's something that, you know, Kid is not going to mind too much. It's a nice card, and you know, it's a good searchable 2k that sometimes you can pop out of your life for free, which is really nice. I do think it's a little bit more impactful for Trafalgar Law, mostly because it's a deck that really kind of depends on having like the right cost for places. It's also something that you can put into your life off of your 7-drop Secret Law, which we'll talk a little bit. So it's a bit unfortunate. I think Yellow Green Law is already like a tough deck to play conceptually, so having, you know, missing a card is making it a little bit rougher. But I do think that these decks can function without this card, and they can still make an impact with it, but it is something that does make them a little bit worse compared to where they were in the Japanese meta. So we'll see how they do. Also, you know, we're getting a restriction list. We don't know if we're going to get affected by that with these decks, or if the meta is going to be better for these decks with when, you know, on the other side of it. So I think these are just this is just something to mention. I know you guys are already having thoughts about this Law promo, and if I didn't mention it, you guys would make some comments about it. So those are my thoughts on that there. So anyways, some staple cards I think for both these decks. You've got the Monkey D. Luffy. This is an on play. Look at the top 5 cards of your deck. Reveal up to 1 supernova other than Monkey D. Luffy. Add it to your hand, then place the rest at the bottom of your deck in any order. So it's a searcher on a 1-drop, which generally, you know, the supernova searcher has been Bonnie, which you probably play both if you're playing Law. But this is really good. It finds out most of the deck, and then also the fact that in green and yellow law specifically, you can bounce this back to your hand very easily. Then you can play it again, get another draw. It's very handy and just a good searcher for the entire archetype. Definitely play 4 in both builds. Then we've got X Drake, which not only is probably the best Supernova 2K that's yellow right now, that's at least available to us in the English version, but it's just super strong for our archetypes as well. So activate main, you can rest this character. If the number of your life cards is less than or equal to the number of your opponent's life cards, rest up to one of your opponent's characters with a cost of 4 or less. So it's kind of like an Uso Hachi in that way. It's also an activate main, so it gets around like on play restrictions from like Blackbeard, which is really nice. It's a supernova. The only thing I think this is missing is like a trigger, which is probably fine because it'd probably be too broken if it did have one. But there's sometimes where I'm like, man, I need to discard a card with the trigger or something like that for some effects, and I can't use this X Drake. But I do think this card is really handy. There's a lot of situations where this is great. Even like mid game, where if you need to be like, you know what, I'm at 4 Dawn, but I have less life total because I'm Trafalgar Law. I'll play with this X Drake. I'll use its effect to rest something, and then I can kind of interact with it, which is really nice. So it's a great card. I love it in the deck, and I definitely play 4 copies. In at least for this little early part when we don't have any other 2Ks really. So then we've got Beige. This one's definitely more of like a Trafalgar Law card since it does set up the top card of our life. So add 1 card from your top or bottom of your life to your hand, then add 1 character with the type of supernova from your hand to the top of your life face up. So the fact that it's face up means that you don't get to take advantage of it with something like the Eustass kit, since you have to flip the life face up, and so it doesn't really refresh that. But it is better in law for that. I've also seen people play this in BY Luffy, since the 5-cost yellow Luffys are supernovas. You can play this to put the card to the top of your life, and then you can play the 2-drop boy to be able to bump that out. So that is helpful. It's a 2K. It's helpful for those situations, and it's a great card too as well. So there it is. Next up, we've got some early cards, and these ones kind of start to show like the split between how you build both of these leaders in their own ways. So we've got Bonnie, which is more for Trafalgar Law. I also will say that the proxy for this is translated incorrectly. This will be updated on my website as soon as we get more of the official ones, but it is add up to the top or bottom card from your life to your hand. You may place up to 1 5-cost strictly. It's not 5 cost or lower. It's only 5 cost. Supernova type character from your hand to the top of your life face up. So that is a little bit impactful, right? The fact that it's a little bit less flexible for what you can put to the top of your life. It works for what it needs to do, though, being able to put a card to the top of your life knowingly, so you can play it off of your life with your law effect. Again, this doesn't work for Kid because it's face up, so you can't like refresh your face down, or, your face up life face down to be able to use your end of turn effect again. But it's still good. It's still a blocker, and the fact that it's a 3-drop blocker is really good for like 8-drop Kid to be able to play this out. So that's really nice. Next up, you got Zoro, which if your life total is fewer than your opponent's, this character gains rush. So it can be a little bit decisive if this gets rush or not. The fact it's a 3.5k without any counter is a little bit tough, but it is a supernova. It also has the trigger that you can play this from your life by trashing a card from your hand. So it's not bad. It's usually I see people play this a couple copies. Again, I think this is better in law, since this is a deck that your 5-drop blocker law can bounce this back, and then you can usually get rush if you use your leader effect very early often. But I've been seeing this splashed in both builds as well. Then we've got Basil Hawkins, which is probably one of the more exciting cards, I think, for these decks in general. It's definitely way better for Kid because we can give it blocker, but it has this effect of on KO, trash up to 1 card from the top of your opponent's life cards, and then also has the trigger to draw 2 and discard 1. This card is just fantastic, right? So you can use your leader effect to give this blocker, and then if they can bounce it back to hand, or there are ways to remove it without proccing its on KO. But if your opponent has to attack, you can just block with this. You get out of the attack, and then your opponent has to just burn 1 life damage, which is generally like a very coveted effect in this game. And the fact that it's pretty rare and usually tough to set up, the fact that we can just do it for almost no investment, right? For essentially playing a 4-cost body and flipping 1 card from our life face up, we get to burn our opponent's 1 damage and get out of an attack, which is really great. So this has been really good. I've been seeing a lot of people make some cheese combos too, where you can KO yourself to proc the effect, and I think it's a really cool card that Kid definitely you play 4 copies of. You can play it in green and yellow law. Again, you don't have really great ways to give it blocker, so your opponent just kind of has to respect it. It's kind of like a supernova version of like Kiko Nojo, but with again burn damage instead of healing. But that is the Hawkins there. And then kind of the last two cards we're going to talk about before we're going to go into the deck list are the top end cards. So we've got the Secret Rare Trafalgar Law, has the on play reveal a supernova type characters from your hand, add it to the top of your life face down. Then if your leader has supernovas, give up to 1 rested Dawn to your leader. So this works really well with our Law. It just means that on 7 Dawn, we can play this out. We get the Dawn back, and we know the top card that we have in our deck. So as long as we have literally any card to bounce, including this one, we can bounce this card back to play out a 5 cost from our life, which generally probably isn't worth it, but if we have like a 1-drop Luffy hanging around, we can then convert that into a 5 cost. So it's really cool. It helps you. Sometimes you just want to heal, which is really great, that you can just do it with any supernova type character, which is great. And it's just a great card since it's a 7-drop 9k. Works great in the archetype. You'd play it in both of the builds. Obviously, Law appreciates it a little bit more, but I know that kids usually play a couple copies of this as well. And then we've got the 8-drop Kid, which again is a pretty exciting card because again, burn damage is not very common in this game right now. But it's an 8-drop 9k. On play, you can rest this character, trash up to 1 card from your opponent's life card. So legitimately just saying burn 1 down. Like, it's crazy on top of being an 8-drop 9k. But in the kid leader, you can restand it, then you give it blocker, so it's an 8-drop 9k blocker. And then end of turn, if your opponent has 2 or less life, which you just burnt 1, so the chances are they have pretty close to that. You get to draw 1 card and discard 1 card, and that's really handy for a deck like this where we have to run a couple brick cards, being able to dig deeper into our deck. And this deck, this card really does it all. It's been really great for the Eustass Kid leader. There's a lot of other leaders too that can take advantage of it. It's not restricted to anything, and it's a very powerful and potentially scary card in this game as well. So these are kind of the cards I want to kind of single out for this, and let's go to the example deck lists. All right, and before we get into the deck list, I do just want to mention real quick that all of this stuff can be found on my website, Eggman Events. We've been keeping a good track of the OP10 meta in Japan, and I have this deck list table with over 100 deck lists. These are just the ones that have top that are either Kid or Trafalgar Law. And this format's pretty much done in Japan, so this page is probably as updated as we can until the English version of this comes out. But I think this is a really good resource for not only these leaders, but anything else in the OP10 meta, so you can check that out. And then the deck list we're talking about right now are going to be found on the team deck list page, which is right here. If you click right here, and this will have the 2 builds we're talking about. These are just my kind of personal builds as well, and I'm going to be updating this as I go through the meta also, so you can check those out. And if you guys just want kind of an example list, I think those are really good for those as well. So we're going to start off with the Trafalgar Law, and this leader is really tricky on how the best way to play with it, and there's a couple of different routes with it. I definitely still like playing a good game of Defend the 8-drop Kid. This is a supernova. We can do something where we get one of the biggest issues with this deck is that we need the resources to defend it, and that kind of also means that if we're at 2 life and then we set this up, those 2 life cards could just be cards in our hand that we could have access to. But being able to have 8-drop Kid and have them have to answer it when we're already kind of wide and we were playing so many blockers in this archetype already. We've got like Trafalgar Law, which is very good for bouncing our stuff back. We also have cards that let us just protect it with like the Tashigi, being able to use this to get the restriction. This is something you can play off Eustass Kid, which is really, really strong right now. Now we've got the bonding, which we mentioned earlier, and it's just really strong. So the other thing I'll kind of mention is that the best way to kind of set up the combo with this has been with this Caramel card. So this is kind of like an unassuming card that came out in OP04. So your turn on play, you get to draw 1 card, and then trigger, you get to play this card, and then you get to KO up to one of your opponent's 2 cost or less characters. So pretty weird, not like in the archetype at all. But the biggest thing about this is that we are so good at bouncing cards back into our hand. So the restrictions for this is like you can bounce any card. It doesn't have to be a supernova back to your hand to be able to use the activate main. So being able to say, turn 2, I'm going to play this Caramel out, great. And then on turn 1 with 2 Dawn, and then on 4 Dawn on our turn 2, we can play this Bonnie out. We can use the effect to put something to the top of our deck and our life, and then put the 4th Dawn on our leader. Use the activate main, put Caramel back into our hand, then pop out like a Bonnie or a Cavendish or something like that, right? Like we have just a lot of access to go like on the even curve to be able to find the pieces. And like generally the hardest thing for us to do is making sure that we have enough of like the early cost to be able to start using our leader effect, and then we can kind of just continually use it every turn afterwards too, which is really nice. Last thing I'll mention is that you don't have to like the only cost for this is like bouncing the card back to your hand, right? So there's a lot of situations kind of like with the red green law which happened where even if you have nothing better to do, you can just bounce something back, don't use the effect, and then play the card again. So that just means like with Luffy, we can play it out, bounce it to our hand, and then play it again. So for 3 Dawn, we're able to draw 2 different supernovas, which is really good. Technically, I guess, yeah, three Dawn for that, right? Because it's 1 Dawn underneath here, but it's not. It's an activate main, so you just have to attach it to your law. Carmel, same thing. It's like an extra a little bit, but that's helpful for us too. There's also some weird situations where we can play it off kid if you already have the blocker set up for it, and I think it's just like this is a really great way to kind of play this deck. So obviously we aren't playing any copies of the Law 2K with this, so we're playing Frankie just as a card as a 2K. I'm also playing Beige just because this is really good for our leader, so that helps us. So we do have a good amount of like 2Ks we can find off of our like our Luffy effects as well. Can't find the Frankie unfortunately, but the rest I think is helpful. So I don't have much more to say about this build. It's something that I think you definitely have to just kind of grind out a lot of games and find where the value is. And you kind of are at this point where you're really close to losing, right? Like most games, you end on like 1 or 0 life. Pretty convincingly, but then once you start stabilizing, it makes it very difficult for your opponent to be able to get that last bit of damage. So here's my current build of Law, and then also we've got Eustass, Captain Kidd. This one's a little bit more straightforward because we want to just kind of push some damage. I've seen a lot of different builds too, and I think Yellow has like a lot of great cards in the card pool. I also think like one card I'm not playing, which I know you guys are probably talking about, is Nico Robin, the 6-drop that came out of OP10 that does do the burn damage. If you want to do like only burn damage, you can definitely play that card, and I think it's very, very strong. But generally speaking, we just kind of want to press damage and make it so your opponent just eventually just can't defend out of our plays most of the time. So we just have like a lot of ways to get some really obnoxious blockers. We have the Shirahoshi, which is great. This paired up with the blocker effect we get from our leader is really, really good. We've already talked about Basil. Nami is just fantastic as a removal card in this deck, since we do already naturally have a lot of cards that have trigger in this game, or in this deck in general. We also have the Damned Punk, which we didn't talk about this card previously, but this is just kind of like a replacement for what Reject was a year ago. Mainly look at the top card of your opponent's life, then place at the top or bottom of their life cards, then KO up to one of your opponent's characters with a cost of 5 or less. So being able to get that removal is great. The trigger is draw 2 and trash 1, so being able to get that cycle is good. Honestly, any event that if you hit it off your life is not dead in hand afterwards, I think is fantastic, and is worth playing in these decks as well. And we also have like the 7-drop Law. We have the Kid. We have the Ace, which this is really good for stabilizing for us as well, and is helpful. And I think there's honestly like a way that we kind of tower up a little bit more. We're not playing like Kingdom Come, but we could be playing that card if we're worried about more of a if we get late game value and we just have like this get out of free jail event card once we have a top end board, that can be really helpful too. So in general, I think this deck is really interesting. There's kind of a balance about how much life you take. Like you need sometimes to take the life so you can have a face down life to flip up with your leader effect. I've also been seeing people play Viola as another blocker because it does put all your cards face down in your life, which is really helpful. And I think there's a lot of ways to build this leader as well. So that's my example deck list for Kid as well. And let's go to our 2 example games. All right, we've got 2 example games. These are from a live stream that I did recently, which you can find a link to it in the description. But we have the Eustass Kid versus the Shanks. We're going to start off with 2 Luffys being able to get a copy of the Secret Law as well as the Basil Hawkins. They're going to go 5 into us real quick, and we're considering if we want to get out of it, but we're going to take it. And we actually do hit the Satori there, so we're going to get rid of an X-Drake to play one out, so that can be some good pressure. And we can tell that they're going to be playing the animal version of it since we have the Hiking Bear there. So we're going to go 2 5Ks, going to get out of both of them. We're going to have the Basil here. We're going to have the blocker for it, which is quite nice. And also knowing that the top card of our life is Kiko Nojo is super helpful too. So they're going 5K into our Satori. I was thinking about blocking this, but I do also have the Gadatsu in hand, so I do want to be able to get the silvers out of there. So we're just going to defend it. We're going to use the Gadatsu to get the pop there. 5K into 5K. And you get the minus there. We're going to go another 5K into 5K, which they are going to have to respect. And then we have a 6K going into the leader, which they're going to 2K out of. So it is a little unfortunate that the Kikunojo is there in our life, and I do kind of feel like we need to either keep that around or do something about it, but we're actually going to go 2K, 1K to get out of that, and we're going to use the Damned Punk card there. We're going to use that to get rid of the Chopper, and then also put the Kikunojo at the bottom, which is going to be helpful since we can get the top card of our life flipped up again. We're going to pressure this Hiking Bear, just so they have to get rid of it. 5K with the Basil Hawkins, and then we're going to go 5K with lead. 7k with Gadatsu, which they're going to go down to 2, and then play the Luffy and use it to find another Basil Hawkins. So we flip the life face up with our leader effect, and it is another Kiko Nojo, which is pretty funny in me. I'm laughing in the corner there. And we're going to get that block there. We're going to get them down to 1 life, even though they used a new gate there, and it's going to be passed to us. So we're going to play out the Law there. We're going to put a card to the top of our life, and we're just going to go big 9 to their leader, which they're going to go minus 1k and 2k out of. We're going to use our leader effect to put that Law as a blocker, and they're going to start with a 5k. We're going to take that just to take the draw 2 and trash 1, which is really handy. They're going to go with new gate attacking in, so we're going to take that 2, get the Kiko Nojo out on the board, and then another 1 and another draw 1, and draw 2, trash 1. So pretty handy here. We're going to go 5k into leader. We're going to go 5k into leader. We're going to go 5k into leader. Big 8k because of Shanks. And then with the remaining 10 Dana, I'm pretty sure that 11 is going to be enough. So we're going to put everything on the Luffy. 11 to 5. And that is going to be the game. So end up winning that one. But pretty much shows like how aggressive Kid can be, and it's like one of the better like aggressive yellow decks that this game has ever really seen. So now we've got the yellow and green Law, and we're going to be playing against the new Usopp leader. We're going to have the 1-drop Luffy in our starting hand once again, and we do have a pretty good hand for going first, since we are able to kind of set up our cards that we need as well. We're going to be able to attack with leader there, 5 into 5. They're going to go get out of it with a Sabo. We're going to play our Bonnie, take the top card of our life, and we're going to put down a Bonnie to the top there. And pretty much we have to defend this situation, so we're going to get rid of the Caramel in hand, and then from there we're able to play out the Cavendish, get 2 Dawn back, use the effect to add 1 to our leader, use it to get the Bonnie out, freeze 1 of their Dawn. We're going to go 6k into their lead. We're going to play out another Luffy, or Luffy, I guess, once again, rather. Likely getting the 8-drop kid, it seems. Yeah, thinking about which one's better, because we also have the X-Drake and some other 2Ks, but we're going to pass from there. They're going to go 6k into our leader, and we're just going to take that. We're going to get the Secret Rare Law, which is nice, especially since we have another one in hand. They're going to go 5. We're going to use the 1k from Bonnie to get out of it, and then we're going to pass from there. So we're going to now use our Trafalgar Law, 7-drop. So this will let us put a card to the top of our life, that's Supernova. We're going to make it the Zoro. We're going to bounce the Luffy back to our hand to play the Zoro, and now we have this 5k attack. So they do get out of it. We're going to go 6k into their leader, get 2 Dawn back active with the Cavendish effect. And now I don't know if I want to like pressure them or their board, since their Cavendish will be drawing them cards. And then at this point, they're just going to be able to do whatever they want. Yeah, block with the Frankie, get the card draw, use the Leo to get some additional card draw, and get a lot of value. And that's just something where I think a lot of people have to also kind of adjust with Usopp. There's a lot of ways for you to get a lot of value, and you have to try to do your best to do so. So we're going to get the 1k out to save the Cavendish, even though we know that this is probably not going to last for very long. Oh yeah, with them being able to use the Zoro effect to get rid of the Bonnie, bounce back our other Bonnie to our hand, and now we're going to use the attack with the Kyros to get rid of it. So was thinking about there, maybe I should have kept the Bonnie and got rid of the Cavendish instead, but we're back here in the end. That Rebecca restored a lot of tempo and value for them there too. So we have another 7-drop Law. We're likely going to play it. We're going to start with the Luffy though, in case there's a better target, which truthfully there were not super great targets. Like getting another Law is fine. We're going to go another 5k into them. You're going to play our 7-drop, use the effect to put the Cavendish to the top there. Use the effect once again to return the Luffy to our hand and be able to play that out, get 2 Dawn active. We can then play Luffy again if we so desire. But I think we're going to try to pressure down one of the boards. Yeah, we're going to go 8 into 6. They're going to take it, draw a card. 9 into 6, we're going to use the Luffy. And I really want to get that 5-drop Law. I wish we found that a little bit earlier, but we're going to get the Basil there, and we're going to pass with 2 life and a pretty wide board, honestly. So they're going to go 5k into Zoro, takes it, not much to defend there. And then where are we going next? They're going to play out the Luffy, and this guy, actually, this Luffy might just win them the entire game. That card is incredibly good for them. We don't have a great way to interact with it. They can use their leader effect. Yeah, they can use the effect to restand it, play a blocker out for 2, and now we just really can't interact with it, which is really unfortunate. So we do have the Eustass Kid, which we could play, but we don't really have a blocker to pair with it, which is kind of tough to deal with. And you can tell I'm having a hard time. Like, what is my best play? Like, I can heal 1 more with the Law effect, and we can do like kind of like something tricky where we put something into our life, but we don't have to use the effect of it, which is nice. Like, we can just bounce the 1-drop Luffy back to our hand as well. But yeah, if they have like the event card to give the Luffy the double attack, it would be pretty tough. Though I don't think they have enough cards in their trash to be able to do that. So I do apologize. I'm like, man, what is our best play? Do we just heal with 7-drop and keep it out? Do we play out the 8-drop? We could also do a play where we use the law to try and kind of like max value. You can also like 7-drop law to play 5-drop law to bounce Luffy back to our hand. There's just a lot of plays in this one, so we're gonna play that out. We're gonna actually just keep the law there just to be able to have better things. Yeah, and unfortunately, like we just see these cards that could be better. I feel we're gonna go 8 into leader, 9 into leader, 9 into leader, and just kind of hope that they don't have enough pushing power to get through this, even though that's probably very unlikely at this point. So they're going to go 5. We're going to go 1k out. They're going to go 9. We're going to take that one. And now they can just put everything on their Luffy and likely attack twice with it. So they're going to use the Leo. They might need to do that just to be able to get the pieces into their trash to be able to attack twice. Yeah, and there it is. So 16 once and 16 twice, and that will be enough. So I do like to show games where we're not always winning. I think this kind of just shows that green yellow law is really tricky to get down right. There's a lot of different value points, and it's one that you can definitely spend a lot of time like optimizing not only like your gameplay but your deck build for kind of what you're wanting to see in the meta too. But that's going to be it for this one. Thank you guys so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. Make sure to check out my other videos in the OP10 meta, and also check out the live stream for some other matches with this too. So again, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll catch you all next time.